everyone, I am back with another video. Today we're going to take a little bit of a step back and go over some things that really should have been gone over in the first video to begin with. We're going to go over how to set up Visual Studio Code, how I get the CraftOS PC terminal in the Visual Studio Code window. We're going to quickly go over the CC Tweaked Wiki just so I can kind of show you how to use it effectively, because it is a very important tool, especially when you're brand new to programming in general. It's important to know how to read it and how to actually use it. I know it sounds like an easy thing, like why would we need to go over this? But personally, I remember back when I was first starting to code in general, it was not so easy to follow, not so straightforward. And then we'll go into some helpful CC tweaked settings that are very useful, or maybe not so useful, but just good to know. So without further ado, let's jump right in. All right, so I am actually on a Windows 10 virtual machine here. This should be very similar if you're on Windows 11. To begin with, I just downloaded Visual Studio Code and CraftOS PC. Just download both of these tools for your respective operating system. Then CraftOS PC, the emulator itself, just download that. And once you got both of those things, we'll just go ahead and install them. If it comes up with this, just go ahead and run it. It's just because CraftOS PC is not like registered with Windows. I would recommend adding it to Path. This is pretty important. Otherwise, you might have an issue when you go to use the terminal inside VS Code. You don't need a desktop shortcut. I would maybe pick up the plugin if you want. It doesn't hurt to have it. And we'll finish that up. And here is our terminal. Now, Visual Studio Code, pretty straightforward. Make sure you add it to the path. I would maybe just keep all of these checked. Up to you if you want a desktop icon. All right, so when both of those are installed, it would be a good idea to go ahead and restart your PC, since you are adding 2 new applications to your path. So just go ahead and do that real fast. We're back in business. All right, so once you've rebooted your computer, go ahead and launch VS Code, and then you'll want to go to this extensions button. You'll see I already have an extension installed. That's just because I had VS Code installed previously at some point. So the ones that I have are ComputerCraft by Jack Mac Windows. This just gives you the auto completion, or the IntelliSense, as some of you may call it if you use Visual Studio. And then you have CraftOS PC, also by Jack Mac Windows. This is what gives you the CraftOS emulator to open in your terminal. It does require CraftOS PC to be installed, so that is why we went ahead and installed that. So grab both of these. You can search the extensions in the marketplace. Once you have both of those installed, you should see this little button here. Apart from that, we can go ahead and open a file and get started. ls, there's already something in here. This already existed, but if you're wondering where to actually find this, it's going to be in %appdata% on Windows. You go there and you do CraftOS PC, computer, and then you've got folders for each computer. If you're running it for the first time, it should be computer 0. As you can see, this is where the hello.lua lives. Now you may be wondering, how did I get the split screen? You can actually just click this little button here. Now I have 2 hello.luas, but instead we can just go ahead and close that one. We've got the terminal on one side and hello.lua on the other. If you want it the other way, you can just drag it. Ah, shoot. You can just drag this over so that you have them on one side or the other. And you can resize it as you wish. When you have it set up like this, you should be able to make any edits in here. So originally it printed test to the screen. In fact, we can go ahead and run it right now. As you can see, it prints test. I'll go ahead and change it to print guacamole. And you got to make sure you save it. If you have that little white circle, it means you have unsaved changes. So make sure you save it. Otherwise, you're not going to see your edits actually run in the terminal. So when we run hello, we see guacamole. You should have the IntelliSense. So as you can see, I have parallel and peripheral popping up here. Print isn't auto-completing because I think that is in the OS. No, it's not. Actually, we could probably get the extension. There's a Lua extension here. So we can actually just search that by Sumneco. Okay, once that's done, we can close that out. And we do see print. So there we go, since print is a Lua function. So grab this Lua one as well. So with those 3 extensions, the Lua extension, ComputerCraft, and the CraftOS PC. You have yourself your terminal, your ComputerCraft auto completion, also your Lua auto completion. Anyway, we're gonna quickly go over the CC Tweaked Wiki. So I have my browser open. I'm just gonna search CC Tweaked, and it should be the first thing that comes up. I'm sure you've seen this before. I always have it linked in every one of my videos. Or if you've been following through, you've probably referenced this at some point. But let's just take a look at a couple of different functions we can reference here. Let's just look at shell. So shell has a lot of included functions here that you can use. Got run, exit. Let's get running program. I don't think I've ever used this before. So get running program. It shows you the syntax, shows you what it returns, so it returns a string. This is where knowing your data types is really going to be important. So it doesn't take any arguments inside the parentheses. If the ones that do require arguments, like right below the set alias, this one takes a command and a program. It specifies it under parameters. So in this case, they're both strings. And then it does not actually return anything. So it means you just run it as is and it does a thing. Let's do the set alias just because this one has some arguments that you need to put in, or as they call it, parameters. It takes two strings. So what this does, it adds an alias. You may be wondering, what is an alias? It simply just makes it so you can run the same program but with a different name. So in this case, this example, they're running edit with Vim instead. So let's change edit. We can run this in the Lua prompt here. And I'm gonna do shell.setAlias. And instead of edit, let's go ahead and do burrito. And then if we exit, we should be able to type burrito and then whatever we want, and it'll still open edit. Edit still does work, but it just gives you an alternative to use that you may prefer. It's pretty cool. If you want to remove any aliases, it's right below it, shell.clear alias. Nope, but it does require a parameter, like it says, a string. So we're gonna do burrito, and it printed out nothing, so I take that as a good thing. We try to run burrito again, it's not going to know what that means. I guess one last one, we can do open tab and switch tab. So I'm going to go back in here, clear, west.clear, shell.clear. Is there no clear command? All right, we'll clear here. There we go. We're going to do id equals shell.open tab, Lua. So now we have another tab called Lua that we can switch between by clicking. We do shell.switch tab, run our ID through it. It should switch for us like so. That's the open tab and switch tab. So if you're ever wanting to experiment, you can just click on one of these, go through. We can do set focus. It takes in a number, takes in a string. So just follow along with the example, and you'll learn what that does. And it's really as easy as that. That's how you can make use of the wiki. I guess the biggest takeaway is you don't necessarily have to worry about memorizing everything. Just focus on reading and making whatever it is you want to make. Alright, so now I'm going to quickly show you how to edit your ComputerCraft settings in-game. If you saw my episode 17, you'll see that my terminal was 3 times bigger than it normally is, and I will show you how I changed that. So in your mod pack folder, wherever your instances are stored, it's going to be different when you're on Windows, so ignore this long file path. But it's going to be in your %appdata%. You just got to navigate from there into your instances, and then your mod pack of choice, then Minecraft, and then the settings are going to be in this config folder here. I'm going to open my Visual Studio. Okay, so the file we are looking for is going to be called ComputerCraft. Here it is. So we have a ComputerCraft server and then a ComputerCraft client. All of the settings you're going to want to change are going to be in this server one, regardless if you're playing single player or not. I don't know why they made it that way, but that is what they did. So generally, all of these at the top are not going to be too useful for you unless you're doing something that is more specifically it more specifically demands these, such as the HTTP settings here. Unless you're doing WebSocket stuff, you can just ignore this whole block. Everything above is going to be mostly for administration or just performance, which you shouldn't have to worry about. Really, the stuff that we would want is going to be from the peripherals down. So we can change how far wireless modems work. We can change the turtles, whether they require fuel or not, or how much they can have stored at most or at maximum. And then we can change the terminal sizes. So at my width is 153 instead of the default 51. My height's 57 instead of the default 19. You can change the size of the pocket computers and even the monitors, how big they can be, like at maximum. I guess by default they can be 8 blocks big or wide and 6 blocks tall. But according to this, it can be 32 by 32 at maximum, which is pretty big. So I would caution against setting it up to the maximum. But apart from that, that really covers any configuration they can do with ComputerCraft or CC Tweaked. I did not see any other configuration files for CC Tweaked in particular, unfortunately. So we are limited to pretty much just this. I can show you the client one. Here's the client. There's not a lot in here. In fact, I've never had a need to mess with any of these. So you can mess with them if you want, but I don't find it very useful. I've only messed with some options in this one in particular. Now, real quick, I'm just going to throw this in there because I almost forgot. Some people were having issues opening their computer programs from in-game into Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to quickly show you how to do that. It's actually really easy. If you're on single player, that is. If you're on multiplayer, that's going to be a different story. If you're on single player, all you need to do is go to your Minecraft directory. So if you're on Windows, it's going to be that %appdata% folder, and then your Minecraft, and then your instances, however it is laid out. But you just need to find whatever mod pack you're using and then whatever save you're using. Inside of that saves folder, you'll have this ComputerCraft folder, then you'll have a computer folder. Each of the numbers corresponds to the ID in game. So if you don't know which one you're using, in your in-game computer, just type ID in the terminal and it will give you a number. So for me, my computer is 0, the one that has this video 17 in it. So simply just open video 17 in your Visual Studio Code, and then any changes you make that you save will be saved here and can be ran in-game. So that's all there is to it. If you're doing multiplayer and you're on a server that you are not hosting, unfortunately, you don't really have that option. Best thing you could do, or I guess the easiest thing, is you can use the paste bin get and the paste bin get command. But that's pretty much it. Hope you found it helpful, and let me know if there's any other questions. All right, have a good one.